Alright, we're in yet again. But before we actually start doing anything, we're gonna start this video off with a question while I still have y'all's attention. So, obviously, the primary goal of this channel is to upload, like, content mostly surrounding NU, but, like, competitive Pokemon as a whole. But were I to upload, like, other stuff that's still Pokemon related, such as, like, if I wanted to, like, play through a ROM hack or something, or just a normal Pokemon game, would y'all watch that? Because, honestly, I don't see myself playing through an actual Pokemon game, because that sounds kind of boring, and everyone knows, you know, the storylines of those games kind of boring. You know, you can find any of those, but, like, I don't know, if I did a Let's Play of, like, Flora Sky or some shit, would that be entertaining enough to y'all? Basically, what I'm trying to get y'all to do is comment below if there's any, like, other kind of content that y'all would be cool with watching, because I am curious to see what y'all would like to see from me. Anyhow, what are we doing today? Well, see, I got the RU preliminary viability list, and it's been updated to account for tier shifts, and what I wanted to go and do is look at some of the low, like, stuff in low tier. We don't actually know if anything on here is gonna drop, right? The RU ladder will do what it wants to. But what I wanted to at least do was look at the stuff in low tier and see, you know, like, how would it fit into NU right now? And, you know, like, kind of speculate, could it be okay to have around? Does it sound like it'd be broken or what? Because honestly, I don't know what we're gonna get overall with our tier shift come September. But I do think some of these Pokemon that are deemed low tier that are RU, or just not even ranked, there are 2 Pokemon that I noticed that weren't ranked at all. I do think it'd be cool to see, you know, hey, what would this Pokemon look like it would want to do in our tier were it to drop? And I'm going to start off with the Pokemon that aren't ranked at all. I'm just going to shout out Silvally Steel because it'll do literally the same thing. But a Pokemon that was left off the ranking entirely, let me just confirm again. Okay, yeah. Aromatisse. Last generation, it was a pretty mediocre Pokemon and all. Like, stretches of the imagination, really. It didn't really do a whole lot. All you really watched it do was run these, like, nasty plot trick room sets with Fairy MZ. But the problem with it was that it had such horrible coverage, even with Hidden Power. It couldn't really break through anything meaningful. So you just kind of had a shitty setup sweeper that took too many turns to actually do much of anything. And it wasn't like Comfy, which despite being, you know, defensively answered by a few Pokemon, this little demon necklace could bypass a lot of its checks pretty reasonably. Aromatisse couldn't. But what does Mon do this generation? I do think you'd probably still see some nasty plot sets on it. But with Kofa around, I almost wonder if something like Aromatisse would be better off just running defensive sets and getting a lot of usage on bulkier teams, because it does have Wish, it does have Aromatherapy, it does have Toxic even, because it's a Gen 6, I think, Pokemon. If I'm remembering correctly, I honestly don't know if I am. But it does have Toxic, so it's got stuff they could do with that regard, and I do think that would probably be a bit more useful out of it, especially with the removal of Hidden Power entirely. I think that Pokemon's coverage is quite literally like Fairy and Psychic, and so if we ever get more Steel types than we currently have as it is, which we already have quite a few, right? We've got like Ferroseed, which admittedly can't really do much of anything to Aromatisse. We got like Galarian Stunfisk, we've got Togedemaru. Maybe next month we would have Silvally Steel back. You know, there's a lot of things that I do think would kind of stop more offensive sets from just making much progress in games, whereas defensive sets could offer a lot more. Like, Aromatisse as a whole is a pretty bulky Pokemon. It's got really good natural special bulk, if I'm remembering correctly, and physical bulk, if you invest into it, probably is enough to at least let it check stuff like Silvally Dark, Sock, even if you run in one of those somehow. I think that'd be cool. Now, if we're gonna actually look at the Pokemon on this, Braviary is the first one I see, and honestly, this is verified danger Pokemon. It got close combat this gen, and despite losing like access to return, I really don't think that would do much of anything to harm how good this would be, right? I think heavy duty boots is also pretty cool because not having to worry about rocks damage is just helpful. So you'd probably see a lot of those like offensive bulk up sets instead of running, you know, a Z crystal. Now they could just slap on the boots and also have a lot more longevity. Braviary also has like pretty decent natural bulk, which helps it out. The main issue with Braviary would just honestly end up being the same stuff it dealt with last gen, which is, you know, Rotom is everywhere, Togedemaru isn't as common as it was last gen, but I do think it's just a couple tier shifts away from becoming a really good Pokemon again. Maybe we get some other drops too that help Braviary stay checked. You'll notice, oh, another Pokemon I forgot to mention that wasn't listed on here, because honestly it was one of those Pokemon that in my head I was just like, oh yeah, it's dropping, Rhydon, because as you see up here, Rhyperior. So there's literally no reason to use Rhydon. And so we would have Rhydon in the tier more than likely as well. Like, Rhydon and Sylveus are like two Pokemon that I'm just assuming are going to drop back down, entirely because why would you use it? There is no reason. Okay. See, I say that, and yet I might be jinxing our tier. Yeah, I do think Braviary would be pretty cool to have. And even if somehow, say, like, Steelix dropped as well or something, I'm not really going to look at any of the mid-tiers or entertain them. There are a couple that I think could drop. I just don't know if they will, and thus I don't really want to discuss too much about them. Let's say something like Steelix did drop as well, or even like Vaporeon, because RU has like 12 million bulky water types now. You know, we would have, I think, enough options probably to handle Braviary. Claydol and Colossal, I'm going to talk about them in the same, like, breath, because they're the same thing, right? They set Stealth Rock and Spikes as well for Colossal, and they have Rapid Spin. It's just not really a whole lot else that they do. I mean, honestly, I don't think either Pokemon would be very good. Maybe Colossal could be okay. But even then, I'm just really not excited by either of their prospects. That's really all I have to say. Comfey! So Comfey, this is a Pokemon hit really hard by the removal of Hidden Power. Last generation, it would run Hidden Power Ground or Hidden Power Fire pretty frequently, and that would be really helpful for getting by checks like Steelix, like Incineroar, even like Delphox, like Silvally Steel if you ran in one of those. But now, it is stuck with Stored Power as a potential option, which is honestly still pretty good. Obviously, Stored Power, you get extra damage based on the amount of boosts, and so after one Calm Mind, you quite literally just have a 60 base power Psychic move, which is the same as Hidden Power Psychic last gen, which Comfey like to run to hit stuff like Silvally Poison, like Wheezing at Garbodor. So, you pretty much just... what's the word I want to use here? Comfey's like counterplay is just now a lot more defined, I would say. You know more what it can actually hit. And while I do think it won't be limited to just running, you know, 3 attacks Calm Mind, it's probably going to be the most common set because it gives you the most snowball potential. I'm sure you'll see people run fillers moves like Taunt and Aromatherapy. Those occasionally got some usage last gen, but they were never very convincing in my eyes. And towards the end of last generation, we even saw some like weird Fizz-Def Comfey sets with Defog. And while those were mostly run, I think because like checking Incineroar, kinda, checking Passimian, like Helmet as your item, that was just pretty nice. I don't know if these sets would get usage now, but I do think people still try them. It is an interesting thing to think about, at least. Next up, Duraludon. Yeah. I'm really scared at the thought of this Pokemon dropping. Because unless we get, like, again, something like Steelix dropping alongside it, or like somehow Umbreon falls, even then, like, I don't know what we would need to have drop to make Duraludon not seem really broken, at least on paper. So, the reason Duraludon is so bad is, from what I can tell, is because RU has a lot of viable Steel types now, and Duraludon's best way of hitting Steel types is Body Press. It doesn't get Flamethrower. And while Duraludon's got really high base defense, it's like 115, it's still non-stab Body Press, and you're probably not investing at all into your defense, right? Duraludon gets a lot more mileage out of investing like speed and special attack, because this mod for some reason is really fast. It's like base 85 or base 80 something weird for something that looks really rather slow. And so, I do think this Pokemon may have some potential, depending on what else the shifts give us. I'm very interested to see, because on paper, Stealth Rock, Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon, Thunderbolt, or Body Press probably would be what it would be running. Probably Body Press actually over Thunderbolt. I really don't know what that would hit. It doesn't seem like it'd be unmanageable as a Pokemon. I'm very wary of it and what it would end up doing to the tier, but I do think it'd be really cool to have around. Duraludon's not a Pokemon that I all expected you to be in contention to get this gen, so I think it'd be really cool. Then we get the Frostmoth, and yeah, this is another Dangermon. You know, take Vivillon from last gen, or take Butterfree from this gen, remove Sleep Powder from it, but give it slightly more coverage, and give it an ability that makes it really, really bulky specially. I don't know how to feel about this, right? So it's got Ice, Grass, Bug, and like Flying coverage. So I don't really know what you want to end up using as your counterplay. I mean, obviously Steel types that aren't part ground, just Stonewall. It's like Bronzong, you know. And yet if we look at what's up here for Arya and why this mon is so bad now, they've got stuff like Bronzong, they've got like Copperajah, even Gigalith, not being a Steel type, but just having all that bulk from Sandstream. I mean, hell, Klefki, Lycanroc can pick it off. There are a lot of Pokemon up here that just make it so that mon's never setting up. But I don't know if NU's gonna have that, because, what, we have Magneton, Togedemaru? These are viable means of counterplay, I do think, but Magneton I'm a bit cautious of, because Frostmoth's ability Ice Scales and, like, special defense boost from Quiver Dance? I don't know, does Magneton end up not beating it then? Togedemaru obviously is faster and could Revenge Kill if you're a Choice Scarf, but if we get like Colossal, it would be like somewhat useful for revenge killing Frostmoth or something, I don't know. But yeah, it's another Pokemon that, like, much like Duraludon, it seems very scary at first glance, but I do also kind of think it's not like just straight cracked out of its mind, unmanageable. I think maybe we would be able to manage it in the tier and actually just have another really cool Pokemon that I don't think people expected at the beginning of the generation for any to receive. And again, I am very intimidated by the prospects of it. Anyhow, next is Hitmonlee. I honestly just see this being Shitmonlee for the second generation in a row. And you got Weezing back. We have Cofagrigus even this generation, so that's really exciting. I don't know what Hitmonlee's supposed to do. Now, the fact that Toxicroak is probably finally it's ranked high tier, this doesn't mean it's going to rise, but I do think there comes a point where it must. We'll be right back. Alright, we are back. Yeah, so Toxicroak, if that does end up going with these tier shifts, at least Hitmonlee wouldn't be like competing with that as well, because the big thing that messed with Croak last gen, or not Croak, Hitmonlee was Passimian was just so much better than every other fighting type option. Medicham kinda hung around as the second best. You know, it doesn't get a lot of usage, but in like present day games of Gen 7 NU, Medicham I think is kind of a popular pick. I'm not very high on it, but Hitmonlee just couldn't compete with either of those at all. And right now, you know, Toxicroak it wouldn't compete with. Even Sock, I think, would probably give it enough competition to where you don't want to use it. And I just don't see what Hitmonlee would offer. Like, what's it supposed to do in a tier where there's Weezing and Cofagrigus on... Like, one of those two is on every team. Not every... Obviously, that's a big stretch, but they're very common. And you have even Fairy types like Alchemy and Clefairy that are very common as well. I think it could be cool on, like, terrain seed teams. And as you'll see, we have Pitcurchin down here. Maybe that drops. Thwacky is in NU. You know, so those could be cool. I'm just very... I don't know. I don't know what this mon would really try to do. Rapid Spin maybe is cool? I honestly feel like it'd just be a repeat of Gen 7. And yeah, next is Mudsdale. This is the Pokemon I expected to see down here. Again, Aryu got like 7 new Stealth Rock setters, and if we look at the ones that they got, Bronzong, Copperajah, Gigalith, Rhyperior, even like down here I think there are a couple, right? Allied, there aren't any new ones in mid-tier. Anyhow, I just didn't really see Mudsdale in terms of power creep being able to last. Plus, Pure Ground isn't a particularly amazing defensive typing. So, I'm pretty unsurprised to see that Mudsdale is now considered pretty poor. In NU, I think would be really good, despite competing with Sandaconda, though. Mudsdale's just a lot bulkier, and thanks to its ability Stamina, it could check a lot of the Swords Dance Valley forms, I think, really reliably. Like, they're not breaking Mudsdale. At least not easily. And it would also just be a generically good physical wall to have in the tier. I think it could have a lot of good synergy with stuff like Wheezing as well, and like bulky water types. It's not like the most amazing synergy. You definitely need like a third Pokemon in that defensive core to make it just very well rounded out. But I already can foresee like a lot of good building options with it. It's another Stealth Rock setter, and although it's just a pure ground type, which we already, again, we have Sandaconda, and we have like only ground type rockers as it is outside of Clefairy and Miltank, I think it would be nice to have as an option at least. It's also not passive, which is cool. Next up, Pincurchin. Again, I think this Pokemon would be pretty decent. I think terrain teams are pretty nice as options, although grassy terrain seems to be like super popular right now, and I don't know how easily you usurp that just because of Grassy Glide synergy with stuff like Flapple. But I do think pairing Pincurchin up with Thievul could be pretty cool. Thievul's already, I think, a pretty decent sleeper Pokemon right now. And Pincurchin having Rising Voltage now, it can run those offensive sets a lot more reliably. Go like, you know, Recovers, Spikes, maybe Rising Voltage, and like Hydro Pump or Scald. I think it'd be at least a cool option. I don't think it would be a mainstream Pokemon by any means, but it would definitely be present, especially on like ladder play, where you see a lot of those more cheese-oriented hyper-offense builds. There's really not much Speaking of Sword, there's really not a whole lot else I have to say about it. We've seen what it has done. We've seen what it does in previous months of NU, just without Rising Voltage. And it was never a particularly great pick. I do think Rising Voltage at least helps its prospects, though, because now it's a lot more threatening offensively. But I don't really know what else it's going to do outside of set Spikes and Recover. So, I think it'll be a cool Pokemon. I just don't know like how overall used it'll be. Next up we have Runerigus. I really don't see this being very good. Defensively, its typing just ends up being worse than Cofagrigus' because you add on like 3 weaknesses at least, and it's at the cost, or with the benefit of not a whole lot. As a ground type, it even ends up just having a lot more competition. I think this Pokemon will probably just be dog shit. Next up is Seismitoad, and again, this is something I was pretty sure would end up being considered awful in RU, because not only did they have a whole bunch of other Stealth Rock setters that are just like a lot tankier, offer more defensively, they have a lot of water types. So if you look at what RU has up here, Barrascuda is not really a great one to compare it with. Like Goodra, I'm gonna just throw up in here because it does a lot of the same stuff defensively, just based on typing and resistances. Even its immunity from Zapsipper. Like, they got, like, Mantine up here. They got Blastoise. They got Araquanid. They got Gastro, Jellicent, Melodic. Like, so much that I didn't really see Seismitoad offering a whole lot to their tier. They couldn't obtain with just better options. And if, you know, Gen 7 and use anything to go by, Seismitoad is going to be a very good option. I think offensive sets have even more merit this generation because Seismitoad has Liquidation now. It's got, you know, that physical water move it had been wanting so badly, and it also has Power Whip, which I think it makes Choice Band sense as a kind of fun option to consider. And it just generic, you know, defensive sets. It doesn't have Refresh anymore, which is a little bit annoying, but it still has Knockoff, Toxic, Scald. You know, it's always good to do just that annoying utility mon stuff that it did last gen. So, I'm pretty excited for it dropping. All of these are NU or like otherwise banned from NU, so I don't know. If we ever unban Vikavolt just to like see how it fares in the tier, same with Vanillix. I don't think either of those would be particularly welcome additions. Maybe Vikavolt would be fine now, because the tier I think is a little bit faster. And a big reason we banned Vikavolt originally was the tier wasn't particularly fast, and it really lacked a lot of defensive counterplay, so maybe now Vikavolt could be okay to have around, but I really don't know. The last mon that I'm really excited for potentially getting is Whimsicott, because it's such a nice Pokemon to slap on like balance and offense builds, as just this glue mon that offers a whole bunch of speed, pretty good breaking power, has U-turn, and its defensive typing is just so nice. Grass Fairy gives you a lot of convenient resistances. Water, fighting, and ground being the key ones. Even resist electric, which is cool at least if you have to pivot into a Volt Switch. Not ideal, obviously, because you'd rather go to a ground type if you have to actually switch into a Volt Switch. However, it'd just be so nice to have. It would fit really like easily into the metagame with other Pokemon like Togedemaru. If we were to get some of the drops that I am assuming, it would fit in well with stuff like Seismitoad, Weezing, we already have that, but Weezing, Seismitoad, Magneton. It just, oh my lord, it fits so well into the tier on paper. Please, give me my little cotton ball back. I'm a huge Whimsicott stan in Gen 7. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we could look at mid-tier real quick. Pokemon that I think have an outside shot of falling, maybe, perhaps, possibly. You know, maybe we get Vileplume back, which I'm sure will give many people fever dreams. Vaporeon, maybe we get it back. You know, maybe Tauros somehow ends up dropping at some point. Steelix, I do think at some point this generation is going to drop. I just don't know when. It's mostly just because it seems to be outclassed by like every other Stealth Rocker option. So I do think we'll get Steelix at some point. It'll do the same stuff it did last gen. I'm scared of Snorlax being this low on their VR, and I know why it is. It's because they have Centiscourge, and this pretty much does the whole thick fat defensive utility stuff better. You know, it doesn't have thick fat, but its typing does the same stuff. So, you know, oh god, I'm scared of the potential even of this dropping. You know, something like Sableye would be cool if we ever got that. Yo, if a Escavalier somehow ended up dropping to NU, that'd be crazy. Espeon as well. Espeon was a mon I was really hoping to drop to NU last gen. Maybe this is the gen we got it. I don't know. NU is really not... Off the top of my head, I can't ever think of a fast Psychic type that NU has had. I mean, I guess we have Kadabra, but that's not a very good Pokemon. I wouldn't count Mesprit as fast. You know, back in Gen 6, that was super prevalent in NU, obviously. Yeah, I wouldn't really count that as fast. Same with the Indeedee that we had this gen, female one. It'd just be very cool to see what Espeon could do. And obviously without hidden power, its coverage takes a big hit, so I don't know, maybe just having fat steel types makes it manageable. But you know guys, I think that's about it for this video. Again, if you're still watching, make sure to comment below if there's any other content from me that you would think could be cool to see. I'll do my best to satisfy that wish. But until then, I'm out. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.